their SAT scores declined as well. And then the students going to four-year colleges, they have increased SAT scores. And then, again, the students going to the two-year colleges or not enrolling in college, they have experienced a significant decline in their SAT scores, and then you have to think about that. Are they really serious about it if they're not even planning on going to a college, and if they're in two-year colleges? I don't know. I think that these are conversations that we have to have with students about what their career, what their college intentions are, so we can support them here. 55% of college enrollments go to the top 10 schools in Pennsylvania. Well, I can show you the ones that's on the next slide. The top 10 schools that our students attend. Top 5 schools in 2015 for our students were the Bucks County Community College, where imagine that's where it makes sense to go there for a two-year college, even if you're going for two, or if you're planning on moving to a four-year college. Our students go to Penn State, they go to Temple, they go to Pitt. And the students who went to Pitt had the highest SAT scores, with the exception of the next bullet, students who went to Ivy League schools, nationally ranked schools. And our students also go to Bloomsburg. But the percentage of college enrolling students matriculating at a top 100 nationally ranked school, according to U.S. News and World Report, has increased from 14% to 17%. But that's another, okay, so we have students who go to top nationally ranked schools, what should we do about that? We'd like to encourage more students. We don't know, and these are discussions I'll be having with our guidance counselors and supervisors and principals. Do we encourage enough students to be looking at those schools? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. What does that look like? What does the recruitment look like? Do the students know they can go to these schools? Should we be giving them and I think not should we should be saying, this is how you're performing. What do you want to major in? Let's look at other schools. I don't know for sure that they know what all their options are, and really I'm surmising all this by the data, because when I saw the 17% of students going to top 100 schools, I was surprised, because I would have thought that was higher than that. So I don't know, but I do think that's something that we should be talking to our students more about, and really understanding how that all works and what their aspirations are, and help them to think big, or at least encourage them to think big. And if not, if that's where they want to go to school and they have their heart set on going, there's certainly nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying, I think that's something that we should be looking at. So this slide here really just shows you how many, the percentage of students who go to the Pennsylvania schools. So you'll see students attending, which marries the data that we just said, students entering two-year colleges are decreasing, because 3.7% we are on decline for Bucks County Community College. But you'll see Penn State is up, Temple, you'll see in the green, I don't have to read them to you, you can see those. And then you'll see Drexel decrease. Indiana University of Pennsylvania, Kutztown, they're on decrease from that last graduating class. So anyway, then you will see down the bottom of the number of graduates going to the 100 U.S. News ranked top 100 schools. So we are increasing the number of students who attend those schools. So we're on the right path. Just think that there's more conversations to be had. And that's the overview of what's going on in Pennridge, or at Pennridge. We have a lot of very granular, specific data at schools where building principals and Dr. Price and I had individual meetings with all of the building principals to go over their data, to go over their benchmark data, to give them their relative standings, like, comparing school to school, where are you? The data that we get from the Linkit data is child specific. So, in other words, this is child specific too if you go on PDE's website, but obviously we wouldn't be sharing any student names here. And this isn't the purpose of this overview. But I want you to know that the building principals have all that data. So they work in their buildings with their data teams that Dr. Radigan instituted here. So what we're doing, administrators are doing, are helping the building principals understand the data, know how to use the data to help the teachers use that. And it's a process. I'll tell you, it has been very enlightening what we've been learning. And we're excited because we're taking the winter benchmarks. Actually, our 8th graders are taking the winter benchmarks next week, because when the teachers gave the fall benchmarks, that was their baseline, and that really wasn't reflective of their teaching. It was what happened before the students got there, and it's really end of the year benchmarks. So they're really looking to see the growth. And what we'll be able to do then is say, where will we project them to fall on state assessments, because they're aligned. So there's a lot of work being done in the district with data. And any specific questions you have, I'm certainly happy to answer them, at another time, or if you have any general questions about the data itself.
Sorry, I have one general question. Do you have an idea why the SAT scores seem to have gone down this year, but the ACT scores went up? Do you know?
Well, that is also a matter of the number of students taking the test when they do those percentages. But it was slightly decreased, and it was basically the reading, writing part. And for the new SAT, so the SAT is changing this year in March. It'll be a different test, and the writing part is optional. And for ACT, the writing part has always been optional. So they're not exactly the same.
In regard to the SAT and that change, so these numbers here that you have as far as how many students took SAT, when was that? Do you think that change in the test is skewing this a little bit? Because I know personally, I have a junior, and he held off on taking the SAT through the fall because he'll take the new one in the spring. So it was almost like, is it worth taking that one? So do you think that might be skewing it a little as well?
It could be skewing it a little. I mean, guidance counselors did tell some students that you may want to wait.
Yeah.
So that could factor in, and it wasn't a big decrease. So that certainly could have been a factor.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how the students score on the new SAT, because that new SAT is very much aligned like a PSSA.
Okay.
They even have text-dependent analysis in it. Yeah, it'll be very interesting. I tend to think, just based on what I've seen over the years, that they'll do well.
Because I know the PSAT that was just given this fall, they encouraged a lot of the students to take that basically because it was similar to what they can expect on the SAT.
Exactly. We really wanted as many students as we could to take that exam. And the high school, I will have to give them kudos. They did a remarkable job getting that PSAT test logistically, because this was the only time it had to be done in the school during the school day. It's typically on a weekend. So I just have to give kudos to the high school. It wasn't easy.
I have a question about the PSAT. There are some school districts that pay for the PSAT and require all of the juniors to take it. So has that ever been discussed here?
Yes, it actually, recently, I'm sorry, I just didn't know about anything in the past, but right now we're having those kinds of conversations. Actually, Mrs. DeBona just asked about that. Like, is there any way we can do that? Because when we started to ask other districts how they were doing the logistics of trying to test all these students in a school, conversations spurred about, well, we pay for that, so they all come in, and it's like, oh, wow, you pay for that? And a number of districts pay for that. So that conversation's happening now.
Yeah. So, and what was there? It was required to be given on a Wednesday this year as opposed to...
They gave us the date.
Okay. But in the past, it was a choice. You could have a weekend or an in-school date.
Correct. And next year it's going back to that, and we will be doing the Saturday. This is really very disruptive.
Well, but but is there going to be a discussion if it's, because if we were going to pay for it next year, it would have to be part of the budget discussions.
And we haven't had it fully. We have had the cursory discussion, but we haven't had it fully for me to be able to come up here and present anything to the board yet. But it is definitely something that we're talking about and at some point hope to bring it to the board because we would like to see that happen.
Yeah, the other discussion I'm wondering if was having is with AP tests, because a lot of high schools require students to take the AP test if they take the AP class. So is that being discussed, or we're just leaving that?
It has not been discussed at this point. Not that it isn't going to be, but that is not, right now we're on the, can we pay for the students to take this PSAT? At some point, I'm sure we will discuss that. That has not been discussed.
I believe it's a factor in how school districts are ranked.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But all those tests require parents to pay currently. And the
AP
district
test.
has never discussed paying for the AP or the ACT testing. So if you require parents to pay for it, and I know from personal experience that not all students who take it and get good scores get credit for it. Depending on the school you go to and the curriculum that you enter into, my daughter, for instance, when she went to Johns Hopkins, couldn't get AP chemistry credit even though she had a 5, because they required their students to take chemistry first year from their professors. So it was something that taking the test probably didn't make financial sense. It may have made academic sense, but it didn't make financial sense. And I can understand why parents don't want to spend that extra money along with all the other costs of preparing to go to college.
Certainly. I was at Hershey at a conference of many educators from the state, and some districts pay depending on, they'll pay for the test if you score at 85% or higher. There was a lot of conversation about that today. So there are different ways to do it, but I did hear some people talking about that today, saying it was underachieving schools and they were trying to get their students to take the test, but that's another way they do it. Mrs. Cullen.
I just have, I have one comment back to we're going backwards now, but the guidance comments that you're making about looking at what schools the kids are going to and why they might be. And I think you're right. I think there is, just from the talks that I have with parents in our district, there's kind of a mental view of where our kids go and where they don't go. And so I would really appreciate that. That's one of the things I'm very interested in, is to look at the guidance and to talk to our children about the schools that are open to them and just let them know of all the possibilities. So I would love to hear more about that later.
Okay.
And the other kind of observation or question I guess I have is our AP scores are, they're increasing, they're going up. The number of kids taking the tests are going up. But if we're having fewer kids taking those advanced maths on the middle school level and the languages and so on, then we're not going to have as many kids who can take the AP courses as they get older. And so I'm wondering if our kids are doing so well on the AP test, that to me says that they've been prepared well as they come up. So I'm wondering if are we sacrificing anything to trying to do what the Keystones want? Like, as a professional, do you think that the Keystones maybe have too rigorous? I don't want to ever set the bar low for our kids. Let me put that out there. But I looked at the biology exam myself a couple of years ago, and I thought it was incredibly difficult, some of the questions that were on it. So, I just want to make sure that we're not keeping some of our children who would belong in those classes out of those classes, and then in the future setting them up sort of to not be able to take those highest level maths and sciences that would let them take the AP courses. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like maybe we're putting the tests for the state above what the kids can really achieve and do, and I want to make sure we're not doing that to them.
I think that's a really great and fair question. And my observations in only a little over a year here is that Pennridge does a lot not to do that. And I have witnessed and been part of conversations with families to say, this is the trajectory, that your student won't be able to take this class, but will be able, if those conversations are being had. So you will know, because not all students anticipate going to college. There are students who don't want to go to college, shouldn't go to college, because that's not what they're doing, right? But if they have aspirations for college, university, college career, all that, these conversations are being had. And I think our supervisors do a great job of actually even a visual of trajectory of, if you don't take this class now, by the time you get to high school, you're not going to be able to take the next level course. So yes, and I do, that Keystone Bio is a really very difficult assessment. Again, very language-based, very based in problem solving. So in terms of, do you want the rigor to be high? Who's going to argue with that? Yes, we want the rigor to be high. I think there's competing interests because school districts are told that you're supposed to be developing 21st century learning skills. And we do a tremendous job here. I mean, I certainly didn't start it. I'm just going with it now and trying to keep it going. But we are developing those problem-solving skills and critical thinking skills and collaboration and communication and doing all that. Well, Keystones don't measure that. So what the workplace has said, you need them both. You know, you need to be able to understand what your work is, and you need to do that. So the Keystone's going to measure that part. But we can't, like you're saying, put all of our eggs in that basket because we know we need to develop the whole child. And under Dr. Radigan's leadership with the whole SEL initiative, there's no way that Pennridge is going to ignore the whole child. So I think we're really, I've worked in other districts where it's test prep, test prep, test prep. And we don't do that here. I think it's more curriculum instruction differentiation. What are we doing? Standards aligned. Are we aligned? Is our curriculum aligned? Do we all have the common language? Is that in our curriculum maps? Then you need oversight to make sure that that happens through supervisory positions to make sure that I walk into that classroom, this is what you need to be doing. So I think in terms of Pennridge School District, it's a nice balance.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shai.
My pleasure.
At this point, public comment. Yes, Mrs. Herring.
I wasn't planning on getting up and asking about some of this stuff, but it came up as part of what the information was that you revealed. Regarding the current grading standards and percentages of differences based against the state, when you say something is 91% here, the state level is 77%. You then put up a differential that says it's 14% different.
I'm trying to find, do you remember which?
All of your screens in the beginning, where everything where you had on the right-hand column, it says percent difference from state to
Okay.
local.
So for, let me go to elementary.
Yeah,
So in grade 3,
you showed it was 91% and then the state
Oh, I
was
see why that's
77%.
confusing to you. Because that is a combination of proficient and advanced.
Okay, but the problem is in the end column where you wrote 14%, you're actually shooting the district's foot because it's not 14%. You're actually at 15.3.8% higher than the state because all you did was subtract 77 from 91, when in fact if you did the mathematical calculation for percent of difference, we're actually at 15.38% higher than the state. All of those percentages are just subtractions, they're not actually percentages. If they were 14 points of difference, that would be an accurate statement. But by putting the percentage there, you're actually hurting yourself in reporting standard because you're actually under-reporting the success rate because the numbers are different.
These calculations were actually completed through an analytic system. So I can go back and run them again, but I didn't actually subtract these. It's a system. So I'll go back and...
Flawed percentage, because 91 out of 100 versus 77 out of 100 is a 14 different, but 14 into 91 is 15.38%. So
But this is...
they're doing it better than they really are The system's not giving you a fair shot then at what your numbers should reflect for percent of difference. That's just a common observation from a mathematical, if you're going to analyze numbers, percent of change. Secondly, you said that in your screenshot for the ACT, you listed it as a decline, but you actually showed that the score in 2014-15 was 24.4, and in 13-14 it was 23.8. I'm assuming that's just a typo that should say,
Yes, and
It
thank
was-
you for
okay.
bringing that to our
in
attention.
case you post that, it's actually kind of
Okay,
misnomer.
thank you.
You said, I'm glad that you outlined the 10% number. That's a number I've never heard before as it relates to grading for homework. So I appreciate knowing that, I really do, in terms of homework. The question here regarding Ms. Cullen's observations in future development and students and pushing kids. I just wanted to relate a personal experience for you, and it talks about STEM, and you're looking to grow the programs in the district, and you're wondering why your grades aren't where they are, need to be for female versus male population. My daughter is one of only 5 this year as a sophomore, as a girl, who opted to take both honors chemistry and honors physics this year together. When she got to class, she came home and told me I have to pick. And I said, what do you mean you have to pick? Well, the chemistry lab and the physics lab are up against each other. So the only way I can stay in both classes is I have to choose which class I go to each day. Excuse me, you have to do what? They gave you the schedule. They didn't preclude you from doing honors chemistry or honors physics together. But now after you're in the class, you have to decide whether you go to physics lab one day or chemistry lab one day. Yep. And I found it to be truthful, because I contacted people here. And I found out also that, at least I'm glad I did do the contact, because in the end, there was one study hall a week that these kids were put in for one class session. And it turned out that 3 of them were in the classroom next door to the other one, and the other one had a study hall teacher who was actually a physics teacher. So they actually changed the study hall for all of them and put them in with the physics teacher. So seeing as they were all missing the physics lab, they at least had some resource during study hall. But if you want to know why your STEM program isn't where it needs to be, you need to make sure that if you're going to let the kid take physics and chemistry in the same year, you actually let them take the entire class. And you don't tell them they have to choose. Or then tell them it's not an option. You can't take both. But don't set them up to fail. Because they're going to struggle, and she's striving to do this. So, you know, it is what it is, but if you're not going to create scheduling that allows for it to happen, it's not going to be successful. I hate to go over my time, but I want to bring one issue too, because Dr. Yarnell was kind enough at the last school board meeting to say that there really wasn't going to be a technology committee meeting, and I've kind of been waiting for that. On October 19th at 9:26 in the evening, I received an email. That email told me that one of the teachers in this building was going to be out on medical leave. The following morning, I went to that teacher's website because my son, who's in the VOTAC, is not able to actually take the class for symphonic band or concert band, but wanted to attempt to audition for the district and for the county auditions. All the music for that was supposed to be posted on the teacher's website. That teacher's website has been offline since October 19th at 9:26 p.m. It has never been restored. And when asked about it, I was told that the district does not support Google site websites and does not maintain administrative control of them. You talk about a 21st century learning initiative. This is a Pennridge domain. We have paid for that. The only way you got that district music is if you were a Bucks County music educator. Other people jumped through hoops of fire to try to get the kids in the building that access and that music. And as a result, we had a very limited turnout this year at district auditions. It's still down to this day. Resources, district property. I don't understand how this district talks about security, talks about technology, and you have absolutely no administrative controls over teacher websites. You have policies in place, but they don't and they can't be administered by our own people. Only from the goodness and gracious of other teachers who literally butchered their English department website are kids able to get information. I find it to be nothing other than disturbing, to say the least, but quite distressing when you talk about security profiles that you have absolutely no control over what teachers can and cannot do to a Pennridge email or a Pennridge website. I really think you guys need to sit down and talk about technology and infrastructure technology. Not just how you use it in the classroom, but how it's protected, how it's registered, how it's governed. There's no protocols here that a teacher could go in, change their password and completely wipe out a website, and nobody can bring it back for 2.5 months. That's sad, but it's also, more importantly, very disturbing, and it hurt the kids, and it continues to hurt them, because if one teacher can do it, any teacher can do it.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Mr. Linden.
Robert Linden, West Rock Hill. Science Explorers, I had some questions regarding that pilot program. The way I understand it, they can hire Pennridge employees or Pennridge teachers to teach the course. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, Mrs. Kulesza, you're still here. That is correct.
So where's the
Yes.
loyalty between that person, between Pennridge and now they're working for another company? And they're in the Pennridge facilities, but they're working for another company. I don't understand that relationship. It bothers me. It looks like a conflict of interest. Secondly, it says no cost to the taxpayer for these courses. But if you have a teacher that's doing the work and they want to use a printer or something like that, then there's some kind of cost to the taxpayer. Or if they're using computers, or I don't know who furnishes the goggles for the volcano tests and such that this company performs. I don't understand that at all. I'd like to see, I understand, is there a contract involved? Is there, what are the legalities here?
Yeah, there is a contract, but all of the materials and resources are provided by Science Explorers. Just like the program in the summer, they provided everything. We didn't have to purchase anything, we didn't have to copy anything. There was nothing that we had to do in the way of resources or materials.
Do they use the school network?
No,
So they don't use any school resources at all?
That's not right. It's really hands-on, problem-solving kinds of activities. It's very similar to the Camp Invention that we had over the summer. So it would be, you could be hired by Camp Invention. You're not working for Pennridge over the summer. A lot of teachers work in summer camps and such. So this is similar to that. So it's not on Pennridge time. It's after school, and somebody else can hire you to work with our students, which we actually prefer. But it isn't the first time. I mean, that does happen.
But this is going to be a pilot program in January, not the summer.
No, I'm just trying to show you that last summer with Camp
Yeah.
Invention, it's run the same, pretty much the same way.
But it's going to be held in January.
If it's approved, oh, it was approved. Yes, January Guth.
Clearances. I noticed that their application, they only asked for a driver's license. Is that sufficient clearance?
For the teachers
No.
that will be teaching Science Explorers?
Right.
No, they have to provide their standard clearances, the TB test, everything that we would require any other teacher or volunteer in the district to be doing.
But that's not on their application.
It may not be on the application, but before they can get approved and they sign their contract with them, they have to provide those clearances. And we have to have copies of them here as well.
The other question is, are there any grading involved in this? Do they do any evaluation of the students that participate?
No.
And then the other question is parent funding. What about students who can't afford but want to attend these classes?
My experience as a former principal, there are ways that we have helped students. I can't answer what will happen at Guth, but I do know that there are resources we can take a look at. I know PTOs have funded it. Even our PCEF is someone that we've gone to for it. So while I can't guarantee that everyone will be able to attend that, I do know here in the past of at least 2 circumstances where somebody aided a family.
And we had 2 students who attended the summer STEM camp that were in a special circumstance and were able to attend without tuition.
Well, I noticed there's a foundation associated with it as well that will furnish money. Have you looked at that?
I haven't looked at it personally, no.
One other comment. I think we ought to increase the instruction instead of dumbing down any tests as far as grading is concerned. Thank you.
Mrs. Furlong, are you rising to make a comment?
Yes. Sue Furlong, West Rock Hill Township. I'm going to follow up a little bit with Bob's questions, with my own questions, make sure I understand how this thing works with the after school. The teacher is not at that point an employee of Pennridge. They're working for the STEM company.
Yes.
And so that does not cost us anything. If they are working with a third-party company, I remember you saying they would be using the water, and I assume there'll be cleanup. I don't know if that's by the students themselves or if we have staff doing that. If this company comes in, don't they owe us a facility use fee?
We're going to be going through the facility usage procedure with them completing the forms. This is a pilot, so we want to try it out in one place and then see how it works. Any fee that we would charge, since this is for our own students, would then be passed on to the parents. Because this is taking place in that hour after school when the building's already open, we're running kids care, etc. At this time, we would prefer to try it without tacking on an additional fee.
We have a policy, we have a policy that third parties do pay fees. I don't care whether it's pilot or not. And it states when it's all of our students that it's a lower fee, it's much lower. So I see no reason why this group gets treated differently from what our policy is.
Well, I'll take a look at it. It depends also, I think, on if the building is...
No, it does not. It does
We'll follow
not.
the policy. That's
The policy has a use fee, and it's gradated depending upon whether it's Pennridge students involved or not, or to what percent. And I don't understand why these people do not pay a use fee.
We haven't established any, we haven't put the contract together. First step was to first get approval for it, and certainly that's something that when I spoke initially with the representative from Science Explorer, I did mention that as a possibility, that we may have to do that. So that's certainly something that was already discussed. And they would just add that on to what they would be charging parents.
Okay, well, I would see no reason to deviate from policy. Another thing, we talked about the idea of whether or not to pay for student testing, whether it be for SAT testing, PSAT, or for the advanced placement tests. Peter made the remark that, you know, parents don't want to spend the money for the SAT test. Well, guess what? Neither do the taxpayers. They're not our children. And especially for advanced placement, the benefit accrues to the parent in that they don't have to pay for the college course. So if they're accruing the benefit, they should accrue the cost of having their student take that test, not the taxpayer. That is an independent private test. It's not part of Pennridge, and it has more to do with college than high school. You're saving money by avoiding a particular college course. So if the parent garners the benefit of avoiding a cost, then they should incur the small fee of the test to avoid the hourly cost of the college course. So I would be very disappointed to find out that I have to pay for a bunch of kids that might not even be all that interested.
Mrs. Furlong, you misconstrued what I said.
Okay.
I didn't advocate for this district
No, you
paying
did
for the
not.
tests.
No, you did
What I
not.
said was that it was an issue that came up in other school districts and this one. We've debated it in the past. We have not decided to pay for it. And there's a reason why parents pay for the test currently. When they do, I can also understand why they choose not to have students take the test, even those who are enrolled in the course.
No, I understood your point.
Didn't sound like it.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I understood. I think I understood your point. You didn't say anything right there that made me feel differently. One other thing I'd like to say real quick is there were quite a number of remarks talking about how students perhaps are not made, it's not made clear to them at a young enough age that if you don't take this class now, then the door is closed for the class, you know, let's say 2-3 years down the road in high school, that type of thing. And I'm just hoping that the counseling office, you know, maybe they need to up their game or something like that, because there were a number of remarks that you made that made me wonder why these kids don't know that kind of thing. And I think it would almost be fun for maybe your computer club or somebody to make a decision tree. So that if you know, if I don't take this class, then you watch all the doors close to future classes. And so it would be a way that they could almost sort of self-guide themselves and then go ask questions perhaps. But it might be a fun thing to do a decision tree on that and just watch the doors open or close depending on what class you decide to take. I believe that's all I have for the night. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not? The next curriculum committee meeting was scheduled for January 20th. As I understand from Dr. Scheid, currently there are no topics that would be included on that. I don't know that we would have the gifted presentation since Dr. Phillips will be gone at that point. Unfortunately, that will not match in that sense. I know Dr. Scheid has a conflict that day, as do I, and the next curriculum committee meeting after that is February 8th. So at this point, we are planning on actually having the next curriculum / perhaps technology, but certainly curriculum on February 8th. So thank you very much for coming tonight. The meeting's adjourned.